approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Motion, second. Wilson. Aye. Move on to consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
I'll second. Motion and a second to approve consent agenda as provided. Discussion.
Does this fill up the planning?
Less one vacant position that is required to live within 3 miles of the community, but can't live within city limits. So,
We're short one then after this.
yeah, so we're still looking for someone that resides within 3 miles of the community, but outside of city limits.
I've been trying for the last month.
But this gets us to a pretty easy quorum since we changed the number of planning commissioners from 9 to 7. So.
Ms. Wilson, call roll.
Commissioner Naylor? Aye. Commissioner Scott?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Mayor Garrett?
Aye. Proclamations, announcements. No proclamations. However, on February 3rd, from 5 p.m. to 6 or 7 p.m. at the Herington Community Building, there will be the Brownfield kickoff meeting. It says open to the public. It's encouraged that the governing body does attend if you can.
So yes, so Commissioner Naylor, I think, was determined she was going to be on our steering committee for the Brownfield program, but we encourage and welcome all the rest of the commission to attend this kickoff meeting too. So.
Other than that, no other announcements. Chief, you're up for code enforcement.
Good evening. Here's my notes. So I have a kind of end of year wrap up for code enforcement. Was kind of going through some spreadsheets. The way that James had it worked out wasn't the easiest to figure out, but we did the best we can. We've changed the way we are tracking things on spreadsheets for this year to make it a little easier, and then hopefully the next couple of months the software will be fully up and running. We have about a weekly integration call with them, and it'll make it even easier. So for 2024, we've tracked about 133 permits were pulled. Breakdown of 25 building permits, 43 electrical, 30 plumbing, 16 mechanical, 2 demos, 1 sign, and 16 roof permits. Since we took over in September, we flagged 22 vehicles for inoperable or unregistered parked on the street, so 22 vehicles have been removed. None of them have needed to be towed. They were all taken care of by the owners. Or I think 2 of them were summons, but they were removed shortly after the summons were issued, and I believe they were dismissed in court. So I don't think anyone got charged on any of them. Grass violations, 125 grass inspections with 106 violation notices, 75 cut orders, and we were able to resolve 31 verbally without issuing a notice. So just a quick phone call, and they got it taken care of. 18 environmental notices, environmental and nuisance violations were issued. There's a couple still pending in court for review and mediation, but most of them are getting taken care of, and we're working through a couple more. We have a couple more that we've started. So we're taking on trying to only manage a couple big violations at a time because there's so much to do with some of the properties, and so we're making progress. It's just going to be slow on some of them, but they're being taken care of. There was 1 hazardous building notice, and 2 new house permits were issued on Gerke Court. I can't talk tonight at all. With 8 inspections so far. Yep. So there's 2. I think 1 has drywall already, and the other one we did the rough inspection here last week. So they're coming around nicely. Pretty nice houses. I believe they said they were going to post them here this week or next week. So, as far as moving forward, we're registered on the ICC. Courtney Alford, who started here last week, is going to be the third part. So we're going to start breaking up classes here, and I'll start with the International Residential Code. McKenna's going to start with the International Building Code, and Courtney's going to start with IPMC. So we're all going to work on different classes at different times to start getting a broad coverage. I mentioned the new spreadsheet here moving forward, so better tracking. It's a little more detailed and broken up so I could get a better monthly count. Just makes more sense to us as we're moving forward here. We're going to start new permits. We're going to keep the same permits, but when we issue them, we're going to go back to the window stickers. So as we're driving around, we could tell if a permit is being done without having to dig through paperwork because we can't remember what's been issued and what's not. So we'll start, those will be coming out here in the next couple of weeks. That will start with window signs to be hung in the window if you have a permit issued again. And then we're splitting the city into zones. We'll all be working on stuff at the same time right now, but just starting that process of, as people get trained, breaking out on their own. So McKenna's going to take care of the west side of town. Courtney's going to handle the east side of town. And then I'm going to manage any commercial properties, or if they have a violation that's going to go past just issuing a notice and get tied up in courts or summons is issued, I'll then take that case on and handle it with the city manager and Brad, or you guys as a commission, depending which way we want to take that notice. So a little bit of overlapping coverage, but everyone has their zones. They'll help with the grass letters and stuff like that. So, and that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Along with putting the permits back in the windows, how are you guys signing when you guys go and do your inspections? Are you keeping track of when those inspections are? Are you signing something and giving to the contractors?
So the way it was set up, if the contractor has their permit, then I will sign their permit. Sometimes they don't, like it's an extended project, they won't have it, so we just notate it internally that that inspection has been complete. It'll be on that spreadsheet. Okay. When we go to the software, eventually we'll be able to use our phone or a tablet and just check right then and there in the software and track it that way. But for right now, that's the way the permits are set up, the carbon copy permits. Okay.
Did you anything on the brush pile on A Street?
No. I failed you. I will make sure.
It's still covered. It's still covered in snow for now.
I've thought about it.
It's not.
I've thought about it a couple times, and I didn't make it over there that day.
It's been pretty busy, so.
I'll make it a priority.
But I need to bring it up all three of it too.
So I will send McKenna and Courtney a message here, and they'll make sure that I get it done.
It's the property that we can brush pile there, which on A Street.
A and Trap?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I know what went on, so I just need to address it with a property owner.
What fire programs are you, like when you report your
So we were using emergency reporting, and they have end-of-lifed it, and yep. They are not, so near, we were in NIPERS. 2025 starts NEARS, and you have to be active by 26. They were bought out by ESO. ESO was going to end-of-life it. You can still use it, but you won't be compliant with NEARS. We needed to be compliant. ESO wanted a lot of money to stay with them, and we decided to switch to First Due. They have a much more comprehensive program, and it's cheaper.
I was asking because I didn't know some of the programs that I had used in the past had allegations for code enforcement.
Yes, and this one does. It's just, First Due is a big program, and they're very particular on onboarding you and setting you up. So each module takes several Zoom calls and meetings and trainings. They're very thorough. It's been great. It's a longer process to build out each of those modules. So it's a good product in the end, and it's just a lot of work getting each module done.
Just asking.
Yep. So with this program, if we get it all built out, and it'll probably take 2 years to do the whole thing, we'll be able to have an online portal where not only can we do code enforcement through it, but also fire. So if you have a residence, you have regular residence, non-commercial, you can go in there and say, hey, we have 3 dogs, 2 kids. My mom lives with us. She's in the basement. She's on oxygen, disabled. and that'll come in our system. So when we get a call, it'll pop up, and we can click on that, and it's whatever details you want to add in there. So you can almost build a pre-plan for your personal house on there. But then we could tie the code enforcement, so there'll be a portal where you could select your permit, submit the permit. We get it right away. We could approve it. We could set up payment options if we want to. So we could really build this out to where if you're a contractor, you can do it from your phone, pay for your permit, request it. I go in, I approve it. I do my inspection. You get emailed right away. So if we choose to go that big with it, we can make it a pretty easy permitting process. The whole program was about $12,000 to $13,000 a year if we buy all the modules. So
Could be useful for keeping track of many things.
it'll make our life really easy on the code side if we buy the whole process. That's the end goal with this system.
Cynthia, any questions for her?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Am I next?
Yeah, you are definitely next.
Okay.
Agenda item 8 is consider lease purchase of 2 Dodge Durango command units. So I will turn this over to the city manager and chief.
So 2 weeks ago, right after the first of the year, I got a phone call from KHP that they had vehicles getting turned in and that our name is next on the list already. If we wanted them, we could accept. If not, we could pass on them and move forward and just wait down the line. But we are next. We kind of talked about this, I think, September's meeting. We talked about it at first. So they have 2 Dodge Durango, white, fully upfitted vehicles, both with less than 50,000 miles on them. One of them had a damaged bumper turning around at a median. That was a $1,300 repair. The other one has no repairs other than that. They are $35,175 per vehicle. They would replace the Tahoe and the Explorer. I have details if you guys want to know anything about those 2 vehicles, miles or hours or condition. I can fill you in on that, but it's not great.
For public consumption, might as well.
Okay. So 941 is the Ford Explorer. It's a 2008. It has 162,040.7 miles on it. Right now it's having tire sensor issues, EGR sensor coming in and out, causing on and off check engine lights. It's having a starter issue, which we can't pin down. Sometimes it just cranks and cranks and cranks and cranks and cranks, and then it starts. We haven't been able to find out what is causing that right now. It has been totaled twice. This was the police vehicle that was rolled at one point and fixed, and also hit a deer and was fixed. So it's been totaled twice. It's the only vehicle I've ever heard of being overturned and being repaired, but it was. It's getting tired. So it's had a rough life as a police vehicle. And then we had it. We're pretty good with it, but it runs. It's our main first responder vehicle. It goes to just about every call. The other one is 942, which is the Chevy Tahoe, which was the old Chief's vehicle that we were supposed to get rid of, but we are running it a lot with the amount of calls we're having, so we haven't moved it on to other city departments. It's a 2005 with 114,801 miles. It has on and off starting issues. The interior, the ceiling is falling down in it. We tried gluing up a couple times. The guys are just resorting to cutting pieces away so it's not in their face anymore because the glue doesn't stay up. The driver's seat is toasted in it. The driver's side panel, because the door doesn't close right, the hinges have been bent backwards at some point. We looked at replacing pins. We'd have to put all new hinges on them, have them welded, and we didn't want to put that money into it. So the inside door panel is broken off of it from having to slam it. Sometimes if they don't close it right, it kills the batteries because the lights stay on. It has on and off ABS and traction stability lights that come on and off. Haven't figured out exactly what that is. It's rough. It's had a long life. I don't know where it came from before Commissioner Stats had it, but
Fire chief says at the time. I actually purchased that special surplus vehicle,
okay.
and we bought it because the expedition we had at the time, cylinder's still fully on it, so.
So it's both of them are still running vehicles. they're just not great for emergency response where we need to make sure that they start as soon as we go outside. We need something better with them. Can they be used somewhere else in the city? Possibly. I know there's some departments that either a staff vehicle up here at City Hall, going to classes, stuff like that. For some other departments, city manager, I've talked about a couple ideas, or they can go to Purple Wave. They're just not fire department worthy, really. They're tired.
It's a safety risk. Would you agree with that statement?
I would. There's other vehicles they could take, but we run these for first responder and medical, so we're not running the engine or the rescue or the squad down the road for a medical call. So we try and take the load off the bigger vehicles and run the smaller vehicles. Less fuel, less mileage, less wear and tear.
Where are you at on your other league?
One of them, I don't know dollars off, but we're a couple years into both of them. So,
For your truck
for my truck,
and a
brush
truck,
to the air packs, thermal imager, air compressor.
but just vehicles.
They're kind of all they've
Okay.
been big packages, both of them, to get caught up on equipment.
So how will this affect your budget?
We could pay for this out of capital improvement without any budget increase, depending on what plan we go with. We could afford any of the plans if we need to. It's just how much do we want to impact our capital improvement. But we could afford it without any budget increase.
So the original plan was we had $20,000 that we budgeted, which obviously isn't enough for one vehicle. And then we were just going to scrounge around for some other funding. We know that both need replaced. We know that both need done now. We're going to do a lease purchase. I mean, it makes more sense to put both of them in there rather than to stagger them at this point. So we can just be caught up on 2 new vehicles, and then we can get back into a cycle of, every 5 to 7 years we're replacing one. So ideally, we'll get these, and then by 2029 or so, or 2030, we're looking at start getting into a cycle where we're putting these in the rotation, similar to the police vehicles, except we know we're not going to replace these every year, every other year like the police vehicles. We know they're going to go for 5 or 6 years. But the point is to get to a point where we don't take them to the end of life. We get our use, but then we get rid of them while they're still worth a little bit of something. So
I think purchasing also from the KHP is a pretty good resource. If you bought these vehicles new, you probably from that 4 times.
63,000 for a new Durango outfitted this year for 2025.
and these are already outfitted.
Yep.
All-wheel drive, or they?
All-wheel drive. They're all-wheel drive. So there is a little bit. If you look at the lease purchase, it's listed at $80,000. We do have to pay for graphics for them because they don't come with graphics. There's been a recommendation that we have the wiring go through. KHP just kind of does them quick, runs wires under floor pans easiest because they're only there for 49,000 miles. So it's been recommended that we go have the wiring gone through. They don't put a main circuit breaker or a fuse panel in them. They just put a couple fuses here and there. So clean the wiring up, do it right so it lasts us longer. And then there's no rear storage in them, so we looked at purchasing a rear storage cabinet for the back so we could clean up instead of bags and boxes. And that still puts us under the $40,000 per vehicle.
What about light?
It's all done.
Already got light bars on them?
Yep. So light bars, it's the
Not a
KHP.
big expense, so.
Yeah, it's full KHP package. Has a divider, cargo divider in behind the rear seat. There's no cages in them. They come with center consoles, so it's got a regular back seat. Don't have to mess with cages or modifying anything. So
And the radios we have will transfer right over into.
yes,
Right.
yep. The radios we have, and then with the new radios coming with the upgrade year, the radios will go in and everything.
If we go ahead and purchase these, the other 2 vehicles, I talked to Thatcher this morning. I don't think we can keep them.
Well, the only reason we would keep them would be in an interim stage if we determined they could run. I mean, we're short on vehicles at our shop. I mean,
We should look for better vehicles. If they're not good enough for the fire department, they're not good enough for the rest of the crew.
well, I mean, if they can run and they can putt around town, I mean, particularly, I think we've looked into the Tahoe. I mean, the Explorer may still have some value to sell, but really none have value. So I'll make a determination whether they need to go to Purple Wave or whether they can be utilized. I mean, there's times when we need vehicles and we're traveling around in literal dump trucks because we don't have enough vehicles at times. So I mean,
What department would need the Explorer?
There could be use for it in the street. Well, the Explorer, I don't know necessarily. The Tahoe, like I mentioned, could be used for the street department, kind of as something you have and you get in when you need it. And you may not always need it, but if you need to putt around in it or use it every once in a while, that would be the use. Like I said, I think the Explorer could go to Purple Wave probably, and it probably will.
I just think everybody don't get a vehicle, and we still got to pay for it. We still got insurance. We still got everything on it. So.
Yeah, I mean, it would be temporary until hopefully in the next year or so we can get back to a regular cycle on the shop trucks, but we haven't had really a cycle on that either.
So what I'm hearing is we're going to need a dump truck.
Yeah, I mean, we need dump trucks. We need regular trucks.
Trucks are like 87s.
Well,
Yeah.
not to mention we also may have lost a transmission in one.
Yeah, I mean, ideally this gets us sorted out hopefully in the fire department and the police department where we have equipment schedules and replacement schedules, but we've never had that in any of our departments up until a few years ago. And then, at this point in time, we got to stick a little money into it on the shop side if we want to really develop a program for equipment replacement, which is what we want to do. We have to fund that, which is what we're going to be looking at in the next budget cycle. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're going to probably be getting rid of them, but if I can find a use for it, and then
Be aware, if they're getting junk, you're going to have to maintain them. You might as well get rid of them when you can.
yeah,
So, but that's just my opinion.
I actually share that theory, and that's why I brought it up. It was a safety risk for the fire department to use it. It seems like it's a safety risk for the rest of the city.
One comment to that is life safety, not life safety. So I see from the city manager's point of view as well. I recommend that we let the city manager and the city manager take care of it as needed. Get back on subject.
Yep.
We need a motion to approve the purchase, the police purchase.
There would have to be a motion, yes.
Are you comfortable?
I'm recommending this. This is just an FYI. I'm recommending option one, full $20,000 down, which is the max, and then just go ahead and place it on the 5-year because it doesn't affect the interest rate. It's actually the cheapest way to do it. So this gets us under $15,000 a year for the next 5 years. There's no penalty for early payoff, so there's not a lot of downside to it. I think it's time, and it makes sense to rip the Band-Aid off and just do 2 at once here. So I'm going to recommend in favor of it.
To the city capital improvement fund or the fire department?
Fire department. This would clean up the last of our vehicles that are kind of just hanging out that aren't in great shape, other than the 86 pickup, but that really doesn't go.
How much would that be in the capital?
It depends on what option.
Option one?
Yep. Option one's going to cut us pretty close, especially on this year, but it should leave 13,000-ish. There's 35,000 in capital improvement.
What option did you recommend?
One. What term, though, is the recommendation? 3, 4, or 5 years?
5 years, you said.
Yeah, no penalties for early payoff.
Is there any action?
I made the motion, but Clint, so I was going to let somebody else, but if nobody else wants to do it, I'll make the motion that we consider a lease purchase agreement with 2 Dodge Durango man-used for the Herington Fire Department. The down payment of $20. And finance over
20,000.
22?
20,000.
I said 20,000.
You said $20.
$20, man, that's all you get. 20,000 with a 5-year lease of what, 14,357.89 a year.
Yes.
Option one.
Option one, yeah.
I'll second it.
So motion and a second to approve the lease purchase with the options presented for 5 years. Is there discussion?
Where, the ladder truck and everything, where are you storing everything?
So the Durangos go outside. The ladder truck is currently getting some valves rebuilt on it, so some touch-up stuff before it comes to us. It's going to go in the city shop until we're done training on it, and then we play the domino game. So engine 2 will go to West Side, and we'll put an engine back in West Side. The Quint engine 1, tender, and rescue will be at the main station, and we can fit squad, brush 2, brush 3, brush 5, and brush 4 at the other station.
Are we not putting any out at the airport?
We're working that project still. So I finally got some price quotes back. I had to talk with the city manager more, with Merlin more. But that is the end goal, to put something out there to reduce that ISO. That's big savings.
That seems like it's a longer conversation, so get back to our topic at hand, to the motion and second that's been presented. Some further discussion. Ms. Wilson, can you call the roll?
Commissioner Naylor? Aye. Commissioner Scott? Aye. Commissioner Bell? Aye. Mayor Garrett?
Aye. Before we move on, I will say this again. I do share Commissioner Bell's concern, and it would be my recommendation just to get rid of the vehicles, put them on Purple Lake. So I'll join Commissioner Bell in that recommendation.
I don't think it needs to be a motion, right?
No, just a recommendation. Just want to make it clear.
Do whatever you want.
Okay. Well,
All right, we'll move on.
We appreciate your support.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief, who's doing the lease purchase agreements? Are they?
community leasing partner.
They will? Okay.
All right, there's no other discussion on that topic. We'll move on to item number 9, is consider reimbursement agreement with the FAA.
So we're still working on the runway lighting project, which is mostly funded through the federal, the FAA for the runway lighting and PAPI lighting project. We're still working through some of the funding mechanisms on this, but this is essentially covering the cost of what would amount to 2 test flights to ensure the lights are working, that everything's going on. Lochner, our engineering firm that's working on the project, has stated that they believe they can schedule in a manner and coordinate everyone to be there, contractors, the FAA, and the test flight to all happen in one day. And so that would slim the cost down quite a bit, but the FAA requires you to put all the money up front in case they had to come out, do a test flight, and then come back 2 weeks later and do another test flight, which would be closer to the $30,000 number. So we're required to pay that amount up front either way, but likely we will receive a reimbursement close to $20,000. Our engineer has calculated an estimate of around $10,000 total for the test flight, but it's just one of the small fees we have associated with it. There could be a chance for some potential reimbursement on the cost of this with the grants, but again, we're waiting to see what the final numbers on the grant match are. The FAA is considering matching some of the 2024 fiscal year funds with this year's fiscal year funds to cover a bigger cost of the project. It appears that KDOT is going to match about 50% of our obligation now, so the FAA is currently tracking to see whether they can make up the difference on that and get this project to the finish line. So it's slow moving with a lot of federal stuff, but this gets us a little bit closer. We have plenty of money in the airport budget for costs like this, and then ultimately, if we get it scheduled right, we'll only be due about a third of this amount. So happy to answer any questions.
Brad, have you had the opportunity to look over this?
I have.
Any concerns or anything?
No, this is based on, it's a different animal than what we normally deal with. This is a reimbursement agreement. They generally dictate those terms. We don't have to worry about the cash basis issues or anything else that needs to be included. I've looked through the disclaimers and the indemnification element of it, et cetera. It's fine.
And we have enough money in the airport's budget to front this cost?
Yes, we should have plenty of budgeted funds, and then if we had to do a budget amendment, we could, but there's plenty of money in the airport budget. Yeah.
Don't remember the exact number off the top of my head.
I'll make motion to consider the reimbursement agreement with the FFA and the Herington Regional Airport in the amount of $29,801.52 for runway lighting project.
Authorize the mayor's signature.
And authorize the mayor's signature.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Ms. Wilson, can you call the roll?
Commissioner Naylor? Commissioner Scott? Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Mayor Harris?
Aye. All right. Discuss and consider standard traffic ordinance 1889. So this is one that was tabled from the last meeting, and partly because, Brad, I was not sure what sections we were actually omitting. Sections 114.2, 114.3, 114.4, and 114.5. I don't remember what those are alluding to.
I can look. Normally, that's something I would remember, but I'm not even going to hazard that guess at the moment.
And the reason it benefit us to know is because every copy that we issue will have to legitimately have those sections.
They've reduced the number of copies that we have to maintain, so it's not as much of a hassle as it used to be.
I about put 2024 on that. Chief, you don't have a copy in the car from last year, do you? Yeah. All right.
It's not pulling them up very quickly either. There we go.
While Brad's looking those up, and outside of those questions, is there any other questions regarding the resolution, or the ordinance, rather?
These are the ones that we supplanted with local ordinances a number of years ago. Unlawful operation of an all-terrain vehicle is 1. 2 is unlawful operation of a micro-utility vehicle. 3 is operation of a low-speed vehicle. 4 is unlawful operation of a golf cart. And 5 is a worksite utility vehicle. And we did separate ordinances for those that we still have in place.
Okay. All right. That answers my question. Is there any action? Will this be 1889?
I'd just say the next sequential ordinance. The prior ordinance was 1889 for the STO and 1890 for the UPOC.
Okay, so these will change. All right. I'll make a motion to approve in the next sequential order an ordinance regulating traffic within the corporate limits of the city of Herington, Kansas, incorporating by reference the standard traffic ordinance for Kansas City's edition 2024 with certain omissions, changes, and deletions, prescribing the regulations, and providing penalties as submitted in the ordinance for the governing body and authorize the mayor's signature.
I'll second it.
So motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Ms. Wilson, can you call the roll?
Commissioner Naylor? Aye. Commissioner Scott?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Mayor Garrett?
Aye. All right, discuss and consider Uniform Public Offense Code. This one was tabled, but I don't know why we tabled it. I don't remember. So this is just a housekeeping one that we do every year too. I don't think we're changing or deleting anything out of the UPOCs.
Yeah, the reason I tabled them is sometimes you can reference any said changes for the year, but those are reflected in both this STO and UPOC in the back of the book. So basically we're just adopting those and any changes within the 2024 copies. So that was the only pause I had at the last meeting, but
Okay.
I feel fine with it now.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve an ordinance in the next sequential order, an ordinance regulating public offenses within the corporate city limits of the city of Herington, Kansas, incorporating by reference the Uniform Public Offense Code for Kansas City's edition 2024, and repealing any and all other foregoing ordinances in conflict with herewith, and authorize the mayor's signature. So motion and a second. Is there further discussion on that motion? Ms. Wilson, can you call the roll?
Commissioner Naylor? Aye. Commissioner Scott?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Mayor Garrett?
Aye. Consider an update on the wastewater discharge agreement with Union Pacific.
So we had this at the last meeting too. I'd sent it back to Union Pacific, and they'd reflected that under item number 6, testing, was some outdated information. So they've updated that and reflected it to the current EPA standards. Basically didn't change much. It raised that EPA method 624.1 pollutants. That was up from, I think, 400 and some. So I don't think it changed much, but you know, they're following the EPA. I think that's fine on our end. So
I'll make a motion we consider the updated wastewater discharge agreement with Union Pacific for February 1st, 2025 through January 31st, 2030, with the update, rate structure, and reflect EPA changes, and authorize the mayor's signature.
So motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Ms. Wilson?
Commissioner Naylor? Aye. Commissioner Scott?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Mayor Garrett?
Aye. Discussion on the final comprehensive plan and goal settings. Mr. Motti?
So we've attached the final comprehensive plan with all the edits that were previously requested to the best of our knowledge. Everybody's had a chance to review it. I will be uploading it to the website after our discussion tonight. And, so you should be able to directly download it to your computer from the website. It's too large to send via email, or I would have. So basically we're here tonight to do what we were supposed to do and review the comprehensive plan at the beginning of the year. Identify what accomplishments we want to achieve. We'll also be having this discussion with the Planning Commission at their next meeting. They'll be more focused on the land use side and how we can accomplish some of the goals that were outlined as related to land use and zoning. So we can maybe start to preemptively rezone some of the sections of town that we identified in the comp plan. Do that all at once, potentially, so we can actually implement the land use map that was reflected in the comprehensive plan, which is a part of the state statute and a direct role of the Planning Commission. But we're here with the governing body tonight to just kind of identify if there's anything that we want to have a primary focus on this year. Can be outside of the comprehensive plan too. We had a strategic visioning workshop last year where we identified some projects or what we wanted to do. We can set this up for a longer form discussion in the form of a workshop, something like that, where we spend a few hours to a half a day on this and go through some of the goals we want to lay out for the next year or two. But this is mainly just to get the conversation started and get it on the record of our new comprehensive plan, and hopefully get this on a yearly cycle. So up to the commission. We can discuss a little bit tonight. You guys can send me comments over the next month, and we could schedule an additional workshop to have in maybe March or April on this subject matter, or in conjunction with the budget workshop later this year. But take any questions, comments, concerns.
The official copy, you're actually going to be able to read the guiding principles, community mission, and the vision statement, right? Because I can't read them in this copy.
Where are they at?
Start at section 2.
Some of that has to do with how it's sometimes printed off. Typically, when it's pulled up on a PDF digitally, it's a lot more clear. But I'm not sure exactly what happened here. I'd have to go back and look at how it was printed off. It looks like it just was printed in very poor quality. So
I just want to make sure the official copy is not something that's blurred up either.
yeah, a lot of times we just can't control how it prints. I mean, we could try to adjust that and make it look a little different. But typically, when it's pulled up on a PDF, I mean, it's usually crystal clear from. I mean, I went through the entire document the other day, and it pulls up a lot better on a computer, I guess, than it does printed off. Same for the land use map. Some of those high resolution images just don't show up as well when you got to shrink them down and then print them out. So. We don't have to do a workshop. I mean, that's totally at your all's discretion. I just think we need to, everything we're doing, the comp plan is one of several things that should be at the forefront. I mean, the comprehensive plan is kind of there for state statute and guides our planning commission in a number of ways, and helps us determine some longer term visions. I mean, for us, it should really be had at the same time as the discussion of the strategic plan and ultimately the CIP that's going to be completed in the next few months. And that should be at the forefront of all the decisions we're making, and that's kind of what the goal I've tried to set for us in the past 2 years is to get us to the point where everything we're doing, we're thinking about our mission and vision statement, we're thinking about the comprehensive plan, we're thinking about our strategic visioning, so we have something guiding us and we're not just kind of going along with whatever's in front of us at the time. So whenever we're distracted or not focused, me included, we know that we can go back now to a completed comprehensive plan document, but now it's just, okay, we've done it, we did the thing, how do we start to achieve what we wrote down, what we identified as a community was important. So towards the back of the document reflects some of the goals. Sure. So after section 5 is your implementation plan. So, we're not going to be able to read all this tonight, but I encourage you to, take this with you and look at some of the goals we set. Typically in a comprehensive plan, you don't necessarily set this many goals, like 14 goals, but this is kind of how it was designed, and we dwindled it down as far as we could. So, some of these things are going to be long-term issues. So really, we just, to an extent, we can only focus on what's a little bit right in front of us. So we're not going to be able to accomplish everything in the next year, but I think we should start looking at what are the 2 or 3 major goals maybe each commissioner has of what we want to start to achieve in 2025 and 2026 particularly. And, maybe we dwindle that down or see what's consistent amongst the governing body, and we start to tackle some of those goals. So again, we're kind of just starting the conversation here, so we can take it any direction you want to go. But I think we are obligated to dive back into this thing, review it. If we want to do that in a longer form, like a workshop, great, I'm fine with that. If you want to have a joint workshop with the Planning Commission at some point, that's pretty common too. To see, okay, what's your job and what's mine? What are your goals and what are ours? How does that overlap? How can we help the Planning Commission achieve what they're supposed to do with the comprehensive plan related to land use or whatever else? So, again, this is just, you want to dive into this thing yearly to make sure what happened last time doesn't happen, where, we got to blow the dust off 20 years later, the comprehensive plan. We should be talking about this on a consistent basis. Every 3 years, you should be doing a pretty mini overhaul. Every 5 to 10 years, you should be doing a pretty major overhaul, and then this is about a 20 or 25-year plan in total. So that's when you'll be looking for a complete overhaul. So we can, again, I wasn't expecting us to have a lot tonight, so if we want to, table this discussion to March, or determine around, come back to the first meeting in March and determine if we want to have some sort of a workshop, some sort of a governing body meeting, that's however you guys want to do it.
We previously approved this with staff review just for some corrections as far as language and formatting, right?
So so this is an adopted document. Now, you can change it however you want.
Mhm.
So you could literally rewrite this thing right now, but for all intents and purposes, yes, you adopted this already. It's your formal comprehensive plan. But, we can go in and change whatever you want. If we have a workshop and we go in and we say, well, that's really not how we like it to be worded, we want to change that section, you can absolutely do that. And that's really what you kind of do at the 3-year mark.
Yep.
Is you kind of go back in and say, okay, we're 3 years into this. What have we done? What have we already accomplished? What doesn't make sense anymore? What made sense in 2024 may not make sense in 2027. So that's kind of what you're doing here. But, it was thrown around a lot that this was a working document. This is actually a working document. What we had before wasn't a working document. Not that you guys were wrong to say that. That's just how it wasn't really a baseline. This is your baseline, and moving forward, you can work on this and massage it to whatever's going on in Herington at the time. Maybe we get a big grant, maybe we knock a project out, and it's no longer relevant, so we can take that out of the comprehensive plan. So we're not far enough along into it to do, I'd say it wouldn't be a great use of our time to go back and rewrite the thing. I think it's a better use of our time to get together and say, okay, what do we want to start working on? Does the governing body want to guide staff in the community to achieve this plan? That's what you're here to do, basically.
I think with it already being an approved document, I would say with the consent of the commission that we agree that we've accepted the completed document, and we schedule for the first meeting. Yeah, the first meeting of February to continue this discussion.
This plan's been going on for a long time, and then you start tweaking it.
This is the document we have approved.
Which was part to our budget hearing too.
So I'll be absent the first meeting. I'll be absent the meetings in February. So
We can
not
go,
that you can't have the discussion without me, but
we can go and spend the next month and let the governing body review it in depth, and then maybe we can have a workshop at that point.
I think you guys should go and read through the document, and particularly when you're not tired or sleepy or have had a long day, maybe Saturday morning, you get a cup of coffee and read this riveting document and say, okay, these are my 2 or 3 goals, and I don't know if they fit in with what everybody else wants to do. And you can have goals outside of what's in this document, but I think we developed this and the community developed this. So go in there and pick out 2 or 3 things that you think are a priority based on this commission, based on your own goals, based on the strategic visioning we had last year, and come back maybe in the first meeting in March and say, these are my 2 or 3 goals for everybody. And we can go over those and document those, and staff can take some time and see what the crossover is. And then we can potentially have like a joint workshop or more of an open community work session of kind of what we want to do and how we want to plan long term. And that's where we could invite, I think, more people.
I'm good with it.
It's homework.
You get a month to do it. No other questions, comments, concerns with this document? Can we make sure that, I don't know if you have a copy of the strategic plan that the governing body did when you were not on the board? Can you make sure that we have all received a fresh copy of the strategic plan that we did at that workshop?
Yes.
Thank you. And then go ahead and get this published for public consumption as well. So, sound good? 5 minutes?
Yeah, I think that's fine. Or we could just say till 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. All right, 7 o'clock. I move the Herington City Commission recess into executive session pursuant to the personnel matters of non-elected personnel exception KSA 70-4319B1 in order to discuss personnel matters to include the following: the governing body, the city manager, the city attorney, with the open meeting to resume in the commission chambers at 7 p.m. A motion and a second. Is there discussion? Ms. Wilson, can you call the roll?
Commissioner Naylor. Aye. Commissioner Scott. Aye. Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Mayor Gibbs.
Aye. We'll be in
So we have another load of rock at Father P. As soon as we get a little bit more snow melt, we'll be wrapping that project up. We're getting some bids right now and starting to build out a project plan for the tear down of the house on 5th Street that we acquired. So hoping to get that on the schedule here in the next month or two. Utilize the extreme colds today to work on some shop maintenance at the shop, clean up at the shop, and then taking care of some of the vehicles we had out during the snowstorm. Recently held a preliminary meeting with PEC on the CIP plan. Staff are currently in the process of gathering information for that at this time. I had a yearly renewal meeting with the insurance company, currently working with the fire department and our public works director on identifying anything that's in there that needs to go, or some of the vehicles that might need to be off insurance and that are headed to auction soon. So we are taking a look at that, but good news is I think a renewal rate only went up around 4 or 5% this year, which is pretty good considering some of the past few years we've had. Lastly, Logan Point homes are most likely going to be on the market by later this month and should be completed by the end of February. So there will be a realtor on that, and there will be some stipulations for buying those homes that the realtor will know about and the developer will know about, but hopefully we can see those on the market by late January, and then we'll share that information to the city website and Facebook pages. And obviously, if you know anyone, send me an email. Yeah. So those two lots are actually, those were sold by the land bank to the contractor. So we'll have fulfilled our goal there. And so once these two get home, then there's a third one scheduled. So hopefully once we can sell these first two, then we can get working on the third. The third gets sold, and then likely they'll build the last two, and then we can kind of go from there and figure out how we want to develop the other 15 or 16 lots in the neighborhood. So it's a step in the right direction. It's a good program. It's going to be the first truly new housing that's built in Herington for a long time, and for some, for folks that might struggle to buy a new home, these are going to be a really favorable deal for members of our community. So we're excited for everybody to take a look. If you know of anyone that might be interested or didn't think they might be interested but might want a favorable deal, encourage them to reach out to me, and I can pass their information along to the developer or the realtor or whoever else. And maybe if they're not interested in the first two, they can put their name on the third one or beyond that. So really excited about that project. And they have taken a little bit of pause with the weather and been finishing up a few projects in Abilene, but they are getting back to these houses and should be done very soon. So that's all I have.
Hay leases out the lake. It's 6 year. I think it's a 6 year coming up. You might check on that.
I'll double check the contract. I still have access to the contract.
I think we have some this summer that might be coming due, but I know we
Because we just did the land at the airport, and this was the year afterwards. So something we need to check on and get ready again for.
I'll double check on cobblestone too.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a list of them. Typically those are some we try to get straightened out during the summer, and then they typically go up about September. So we'll double check that, but Kathy keeps us informed typically on that. So
Yeah, I just think it's this year, so just being aware. That's all I had.
okay.
I move to adjourn. Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. You're adjourned. What? All right.